What's up, guys? This is Nathan, ThatAlbumReviewerGuy here, and I'm doing an album review. And today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Young Guns, and it's called Ones and Zeros. This is their third album. Young Guns took a much different approach on this album than they did with their past two albums. They've incorporated a lot of electronic elements into their music for this disc. When I heard their lead single off the album, I Want Out, for the first time, which came out almost a year ago, I said it sounded like something I would expect from The Killers. And I definitely mean that in a good way, because I'm a fan of a good portion of The Killers material. From what I've seen from comments on videos of these songs on the Young Guns YouTube channel, though, a lot of people are upset that the band changed their sound. Now, I'm sure by now we've all realized that there's just no pleasing music fans. I mean, if a band changes their sound, the fans hate it, and they say the band sucks. If a band doesn't change their sound, the fans get bored, and they hate it, and they say the band sucks. Personally, I like the direction Young Guns went with on this album. I feel as though it offers new opportunities for song formulas, and we could be getting more of a variety of material from the band. I mean, let's take a look at their discography real quick. All Our Kings Are Dead, their first album, was more of a post-hardcore influenced album. Then we got into Bones, which is their second album, which was more of a straight-up rock or alternative rock album. And this album, Ones and Zeros, is still a rock and alternative album. It's still Young Guns, but it incorporates more electronic influences and maybe even a little bit of a shoegaze style in some parts of the album. And the way the band incorporates these styles into the music on the album is done very well. A lot of the bands these days add electronics to the music just for the sake of doing it, and sometimes that really diminishes the overall quality of the music, and it just diminishes the overall product that the band is trying to put out, because they rely heavily on electronic influences when, in all honesty, they're not really needed sometimes. Electronic music is one of those things that can be incorporated into a lot of styles, but it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be incorporated just because it's popular, and just because the band wants to try to sound more modern, or whatever the excuse is. It doesn't need to be incorporated, but sometimes when it is, it's done well, like it is with this album. They didn't just put it in to put it in. It feels like it serves an actual purpose in this album. And not to mention, there's also a symphonic influence track on this album, and a little bit of a slight R&B sounding verse on a track as well. There are a lot of directions the band goes with on this album, and they do it in a way that ties everything together and gives us a pretty good album. Now, while this album is put together very well, there are a couple of dull points, but for the most part, this album is spot on. There are a few softer songs, there are a few upbeat tracks with rock, electronic pop, and a few other influences sprinkled throughout the album. I'm sure there's something that everyone will like about the album. Overall, this album is done well. It is definitely a solid release from Young Guns. They put a lot of work into the album, and it did pay off. Favorites: Rising Up, I Want Out, Daylight, Speaking in Tongues, and Colorblind. The only least favorite track I have is Lullaby. That track doesn't click with me all too well. But overall, this album gets an 8.5 out of 10. It is a great release from Young Guns. I don't feel it deserves a 9, though, but an 8.5 is definitely a good score, in my opinion. they did pretty well with this album. What do you guys think of the album? Do you like the direction Young Guns went with for the album? Do you hate it? Let me know. My social media stuff is in the description. You can ask me a question on AskFM. You can follow me on Tumblr. Like me on Facebook. Keep track of my social media. You can stay tuned. You can keep track of what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, all that stuff. All that good stuff. And yeah, of course, stay tuned for the next review. The next review I'm going to do is going to be of the new Muse album, Drones. So that should be coming soon. So, yeah, stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys on the next one. That I'm Reviewer Guy, signing off.